Hello and welcome to Spectrum TV News at 2. I am. Federal government confirms planned inauguration of 650,000 barrels per day Dangote refinery. Supreme Court fixes Tuesday, May 9 for judgment over Osun election. Plus, Ukrainian Mayor Vitaly Klitschko says at least 5 people injured in airstrikes across the country. We will bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Mining of crude oil to save the scarce foreign exchange used in the importation of petroleum products have received a boost as the 650,000 barrels per day Dangote refinery, the world's largest single-train refinery, is set for inauguration on May 22, 2023 by President Muhammadu Buhari. Meanwhile, the federal government has said all Nigerians fleeing the disaster management and social development, Nasir Sani Gwanzo, stated this when he received another batch of Nigerian evacuees at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, Abuja. Sani Gwanzo said a total of 834 Nigerian evacuees from Egypt and Port Sudan arrived at the airport, bringing to 1,471 the number of Nigerians so far evacuated and brought back to Nigeria from Egypt and Port Sudan in 5 days. He said the first batch comprising 282 evacuees, second batch 94 evacuees, third batch comprising 130 evacuees, fourth batch 131, while the fifth that those in Port Sudan would all be evacuated in a few days. We move to the judiciary, where the Supreme Court has fixed May 9 for judgment in the appeal filed by a former Osun governor, Gboyega Oyetola, against the election of Ademola Adeleke. In his appeal, Oyetola is seeking the reversal of the March 25 judgment of the Court of Appeal in Abuja, which affirmed Adeleke's victory in the last governorship elections in Osun State. A 5-member panel of the Supreme Court announced the date after taking arguments from lawyers to parties today. Recall that the appeal court had, in its judgment, set aside an earlier judgment by the Osun Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, which held in favor of Oyetola and removed Ademola Adeleke. While the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal, Abuja, has begun the pre-hearing of the petitions challenging the outcome of the February 25 presidential election. Recall that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, declared that Bola Tinubu of the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, polled over 8 million votes to win the election, while Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, justices presiding over the various petitions are the Chief Registrar of the Court of Appeal, Haruna Samani, and Justice Stephen Ada of the Court of Appeal Asaba Division. Others include Court of Appeal. And while the Action Alliance has withdrawn its petition against the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In the meantime, the National Industrial Court of Nigeria, NICN, sitting in Benin City, Edo State capital, has declared that the June 8, 2022 directive of the state government suspending trade unions' activities in tertiary institutions in the state is unconstitutional, illegal, null, and void. Delivering judgment, Justice A.A. Adewememo ruled that the state government was wrong to have suspended trade union activities in the AAU and other tertiary institutions, and through its lawyer, Kingsley Obamoge, in a suit to challenge the directive of Governor Godwin Obaseki suspending all unions in the state's tertiary institutions. The suit had the ASU chairman, AAU chapter, Dr. Cyril Onobosele, and Assistant Secretary William Odiong as claimants, while Obaseki, the State Attorney General, and the Edo State government were the defendants. And 28 incoming governors must declare their assets before May 29. He said other officials, including senators-elect and reps-elect, are expected to declare their assets before June 5, when they would be sworn in. The CCB spokesperson Veronica Kato told newsmen in Abuja that asset declaration was an integral part of the swearing-in ceremony. According to the law, she disclosed that they were expected to submit the filed copies of the bureau to the bureau before the inauguration day. According to her, failure to declare their assets as required under the provisions of the Federal Constitution attracts conviction, removal from office, disqualification from holding any public office, and forfeiture to the state of any property acquired in abuse of office or dishonesty. In a separate development, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has filed a contempt suit against the federal government for allegedly failing to recover over 40 billion naira double pay and life pensions from former governors who are serving as lawmakers and ministers. SERAP disclosed these in a statement by its Deputy Director Kolawole Olawundare, recalling that Justice Oguntoyibo of the Federal High Court, Lagos, ordered the federal government in November 2019 to recover life pensions collected by former governors serving as ministers and members of the National Assembly. Justice Oguntoyibo also directed the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami to challenge the legality of states' life pension laws permitting former governors and other ex-public officials to collect such pensions. The rights group regretted that the government of President Muhammadu Buhari has failed to implement the judgment. Justice Oguntoyibo, who retired from the bench last month, expressed regret during a valedictory court session held in her honor that the judgment has not been implemented. In another development, Kenyan President William Ruto has congratulated the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Tinubu's media said the congratulatory message was contained in a personal letter delivered to the president-elect by the special envoy sent by Ruto to discuss areas of mutual interest between Nigeria and the East African country. Among other things, the Kenyan leader offered to work with Tinubu to consolidate the long-standing relationship between both countries. In his response, the president-elect expressed his desire to work with the Kenyan president and other African leaders to champion issues of mutual interest, especially in the areas of economic growth, development, and tackling insecurity, in line with his agenda for the Nigerian people. We move now to Africa, where UN humanitarian chief Martin Griffiths has arrived in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia for talks aiming for a ceasefire between Sudan's warring military factions. UN spokesperson Eri Kanako said Griffiths is in Jeddah to engage in humanitarian issues related to Sudan. Reports say representatives from Sudan's warring armies have also arrived in Saudi Arabia for their first face-to-face negotiations. The Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) have reportedly said they will discuss a humanitarian truce. Rest in Sudan have reportedly crossed the border into Ethiopia. Reports say the situation came as gun battles and airstrikes fled in Khartoum, Sudan's capital, which has been rocked by 4 weeks of fighting despite the latest ceasefire efforts backed by Saudi Arabia and the United States. According to reports, multiple truce deals have been declared and quickly violated since fighting erupted between army and paramilitary forces. On the foreign scene, Ukrainian Mayor Vitaly Klitschko says air raid sirens have sounded across the country after Russia launched a fresh wave of missile and drone strikes on cities around the country. According to the city's mayor, explosions were heard in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, where 5 people have been reportedly injured by falling debris from drone attacks hitting 4 cities. Reports say it is the 4th attack on Kyiv in 8 days and comes just 24 hours before Russia celebrates its Victory Day. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military said the raids, which lasted more than 4 hours, saw 16 missiles fired at targets across the country. Still on occasions a day earlier to May 8 in a bill presented to lawmakers in Kyiv. Zelensky said Ukraine traditionally commemorates victory over the Nazis on May 9th, but that date has become increasingly associated with a parade in Moscow used by the Kremlin to flex its military might. According to him, it is on May 8 that most nations of the world remember the greatness of the victory over the Nazis. Still to come in the news. Many thanks for staying with us, and now to the rest of the news stories. On a business news, Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has said that for Nigeria to solve its housing deficit, it requires a favorable mortgage policy. El-Rufai made this disclosure after the inauguration of the Gombe Geographic Information System Service Center and performing the groundbreaking of 550 Shango homes and gardens under the Family Homes Fund in Gombe State. According to the Kaduna State Governor, the housing deficit stands at about 18 million naira, stressing that it was not sustainable to sell houses between 10 million naira and 50 million naira. He noted that mortgage policy would enable buyers to pay in 25 years' time, saying the incoming administration under President-elect Ahmed Bola Tinubu would ensure single-digit interest between 15 to 20 years. El-Rufai expressed optimism that states would be given the needed opportunity to operate, adding that states should devise means to survive without Federal Account Allocation Committee. Still in business, data from the petroleum industry has shown that petrol consumers may pay about 8.4 trillion naira for premium motor spirit (PMS), popularly called petrol, between July and December 2023, 700 naira per litre from July, noting that the development means the expense by Nigerians for fully deregulated petrol could rise by 6 trillion naira during the 6-month period. Meanwhile, the Group Chief Executive Officer, Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL), Melakari, says over 66 million liters of PMS was pumped daily into the market by NNPC Limited to keep the country afloat. Now to health, where the Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC), Ifedayo Adetifa, has said the threat of the COVID-19 virus remains within nations across the globe, particularly for high-risk groups. Adetifa said this in a statement released by the agency following the announcement by the Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, that COVID-19 was no longer a public health emergency of international concern. The NCDC boss said the WHO declaration was to enable countries transition from acute emergency response to managing COVID-19 as part of integrated healthcare delivery for all infectious diseases. He noted that Nigeria had already de-escalated its COVID-19 response since 2022, adding that its focus is on encouraging COVID-19 in health. A hematologist and the Secretary General of the Nigeria Cancer Society, Dr. Salah Yeguda, has said cancer care can only be effective when all professionals involved in the treatment work as a team. Yeguda stated this at a cancer summit held in Lagos, stating that doctors, nurses, psychologists, and every health worker in the hospital have a role to play. While a professor of radiology and that the three most common cancers in Nigeria are prostate, cervical, and breast cancer. The moves to sports, where Paris Saint-Germain PSG has moved within 3 wins of the Ligue 1 title with a routine victory at Troyes. PSG were dominant, playing in their first match since suspending World Cup winner Lionel Messi, with Kylian Mbappe opening the scoring for the champions in the 8th minute before Vitinha doubled the lead midway through the second half. Xavier Cavalerin pulled a goal back for Troyes later on, only for PSG to add a third through Fabien Ruiz. PSG, who came into this match having lost 3 of their past 6 games, now need just 7 more points to win a record 11th French title. Reports say they are 6 points clear of second place Lens, with 4 more fixtures remaining this season. Still in sports, world number 2 tennis player Carlos Alcaraz has retained his Madrid Open title with a 3-set victory over Germany's Jan-Lennard Struff. The 20-year-old Spaniard won 6-4, 3-6, 6-3 for his 4th trophy on the ATP Tour this season and 10th overall. Reports say he will be replacing Novak Djokovic at the top of the world rankings by playing in Rome next week. On our entertainment news, Nigerian singer Oluwatosin Ajibade, popularly known as Mr. Easy, says he believes Afrobeat is the key to developing Africa's creative economy. The music stars made the statement at the 2023 Melcan Global Conference in Los Angeles. The artist, speaking alongside the continent, will help to export African commodities overseas and shape global culture. Mr. Easy also spoke on the challenges in the African music industry, which include equity participation in terms of investment and infrastructure. From Tyler Perry and Investing Studios. The actress shared her thoughts on Nollywood during a youth development forum in Lagos State. According to her, the industry needs studios and sound stages in order to produce movies properly. She added that it is unacceptable to use her home as a movie set, having about 20 strangers at a time. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You've been watching Spectrum TV News at 2. I am Francis Edit. Enjoy the rest of your day.